Okay, now it's time for our writing workshop. And if you remember, we're talking about creative writing. And creative writing is just one form of narrative that we are learning about. And it's where we get, over the next few days, what we're going to do is work together to collaborate and work together to create a made up story that we'll work on using creative writing. So together we're going to use our imaginations and we're going to make up a story about going somewhere new. Now, before we do that, we're going to take a look at someone else's example just to help us get our ideas and our imagination going. Now, you remember in the last stop on Market Street, we read the creative story about a boy who goes somewhere new with his Nana, and he went to a soup kitchen, remember? And in creative writing, is when the author gets to create a whole new world. That's one of our vocabulary words, world. He's going to create, an author will create a whole new world, somewhere maybe we've never been before or made up. So we're going to take a look at the example here and we're going to read this together. Are you ready? Let's go. Sometimes, remember, when we look closely at someone else's work, it helps us to get together to help us begin thinking about how we can create our own creative writing story. So here it is. It's a trip to the Earth Museum by Bailey Otto. So this is someone your age who wrote this, and so we're just going to take a look at his. It's a creative writing story. So it says, Hollis and his dad got out of the space car. They were at the Earth Museum. Hollis saw green trees and butterflies everywhere. Hollis tried to touch a butterfly. It flew away. Hollis learned all about life on Earth. They climbed back in their space car and drove home across the moon. So let's just talk about the 5 elements that we learned about in story writing. Remember how to retell? We learned to use our own words to tell the characters. Who were the characters? Do you remember? Oops. Well, sorry. The characters were Hollis and his dad. And then where's the setting? Where did it take place? It took place on Earth and where they lived on the moon. So they were from the moon. That's where it took place. And it looked like it took place during the day because it was outside where the butterflies were. And the main events, let's just talk about what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end now. So to do that, I want you to get out another piece of paper and make a story map like you did yesterday with the little red hen. If in the paperwork that I sent home in the package with your paddle and your some other papers, you might have a story map in there. I'm not quite sure, but if you don't, you can create it. You don't have to draw the boxes if you don't want to. It doesn't have to be exact. But I want you to get a piece of paper and make a story map if you haven't done that already. If you need to do that, you can go ahead and push pause and take care of that or ask your family to help you with that. But right now, we're going to go ahead and work together on talking about the main events of what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, whether the story is true or it's made up from our imaginations, they still have these 5 components. There's always set characters, there's always a setting, and then there's always the main events, the beginning, middle, and end. So this one is a made-up story, but we are still going to write it. So the story, the title of the story, if you remember, was A Trip to the Earth Museum. So we'll write that in here, a trip. I'm going to stand up. I made a mistake because when you have a title, you should always capitalize the beginning of every letter. So a trip to, except for the smaller words, to the, what was it called? Earth Museum. That's the title. Always make sure you write the title, A Trip to the Earth Museum. So now we're going to talk about what happened at the beginning, and to save us some time, I already drew a picture. Because if you remember, Hollis and his dad were in a space car, right? And he got out. So I just drew a stick man. If you want to draw, maybe it was some kind of alien, you could draw that. So I'm going to write here what happened at the beginning. We can look over here. Can we turn the camera here? Let's see this. How this got turned. Let me see. It says here that Hollis and his dad got out of the space car. So that's the first thing that happened. So let's go ahead and write that here, Hollis. And then you can write that in yours. Hollis got out of space car at Earth Museum. Now, this is really, I put a period here as if it were a sentence. It's not really a sentence. I'm just taking notes to talk about what happened at the beginning. So that's what happened at the beginning. And I drew him coming out of his space car, and there he is with his helmet on or whatever, smiling. He's all happy to be there. And then we read over here that they were at the Earth Museum, and Hollis saw green trees and butterflies everywhere. And he tried to touch a butterfly and it flew away. So he was outside enjoying all of that at the Earth Museum. So let's write about that. So I drew a picture of it, and you can draw that picture. So we talk about, what do we see here? Let's just take some notes this way. Trees, butterflies. What else? They were everywhere. They were everywhere. They began to wonder, that's a nice word, they wonder about Earth world. That was so interesting to Hollis and his dad, wasn't it? So there he is looking, waving at the trees, and then the butterflies are there too. So now what happens at the end? Do you remember what happens? They get in their space car, and they leave. So they go home, Hollis and Dad. Do you remember where they go? Our story over here says they climbed back in their space car and drove home across the moon. So they go home on moon. So those are the three things. So I want you to remember, I'd like for you to make sure that you include all three of these elements. Normally we would be working together and figuring that out, but I want you to get in the habit of breaking this little story down into the beginning, the middle, and the end, and these will be notes. So these notes will help us and practice to write our own creative story by the end of the week. We'll be doing that. So I hope you enjoyed that today. Go ahead and take care of that. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.